Have you ever found yourself pausing, wondering if you should say, email Bob and me, or email Bob and myself? Well, that little bit of confusion is exactly what we're tackling today, reflexive pronouns. They might seem a little tricky, but trust me, they follow some really clear rules, so let's dive in and break them down.
So, let's kick things off with a quick question. You see all these words up here, myself, yourself, himself, and so on. What's the one thing they all have in common? If you're looking at them and thinking, hey, they all end in self or selves, then you've nailed it. That little suffix is the real key to understanding what these words are all about. All right, let's get right down to the basics. Before we jump into all the rules and how to use them, we've got to ask the big question. What exactly is a reflexive pronoun? What's its main job in a sentence? And here's our answer. A reflexive pronoun is what we use when the subject of the sentence, the person doing the action, is also the object, the one receiving that same action. The easiest way to think about it is like a mirror. The action of the verb literally reflects right back onto the person who did it. It's kind of like a linguistic boomerang. Okay, so just like every subject pronoun, like I, you, or he, has its own possessive partner, they also have a reflexive partner. It's time to meet the whole family. And here they are. You can see how logically they all pair up, right? I goes with myself, she goes with herself. The most important pattern to lock in is that ending. Singular subjects like I or he get the self ending, but the plural ones like we and they get selves. It's a really simple rule that, once you know it, makes them so much easier to remember. Okay, so now we know who they are, let's talk about what they actually do. These pronouns pretty much have three main jobs, and once you get these down, you're going to be using them like a total pro. So this is their number one job, their main gig. It's that mirror idea we just talked about. The doer of the action is also the receiver of the action. This is, by far, the most common and most important use you need to remember. This example is just perfect. Who's doing the teaching here? I am. And who is being taught? Well, I am again. Because the doer and the receiver are the exact same person, we have to use myself. If you try to say, I taught me to play the guitar, it just sounds wrong, doesn't it? That's your brain telling you that the reflexive rule is kicking in. All right, on to their second job. This one is less about strict grammar and a lot more about adding a little punch, a little emphasis. You use it when you want to make it absolutely 100% clear that someone did something personally.
Now look at this sentence. Himself isn't really receiving any action here. The sentence works just fine without it. The president signed the letter. But when we add himself, we're really stressing that it wasn't an assistant or an aide who signed it, it was the top person, in the flesh. It just adds this extra layer of importance.
And now for their third job, which is a bit of a special case. When you pair one of these reflexive pronouns with the little word by, you create a totally unique phrase that means one of two things. Either alone or without any help. So the key takeaway here is that saying by herself means she lives alone, or it could mean she's really independent and gets things done without needing help from anyone else. And this works for all of them, by myself, by themselves, you name it. It's a really handy little phrase for talking about solitude or independence. Okay, we've covered how to use them the right way. Now for what I think is the fun part, the common mistakes. Let's step into the caution zone and look at the traps that so many people fall into. If you can avoid these, your writing is going to be so much sharper. This is it. This is probably the number one mistake people make with these words. I think people often use myself because it sounds a little fancier, a bit more formal, but it's just not correct here. See, the subject of this sentence is an implied you. And since you and myself aren't the same person, you have to use the object pronoun me. Here's a great little trick. Just take the other person out of the sentence. You'd never say, please email myself, would you? No, you'd say, please email me. It works every single time.
Now, this next one is all about being precise. They looked at themselves in the mirror, means that each individual person in the group was looking at their own reflection. But they looked at each other, means they were looking at the other people in the group. One is an inward personal action, while the other is a mutual shared action. It's a subtle difference, but it completely changes the meaning of the sentence.
And finally, a couple of quick-fire tips to wrap this section up. First, some verbs like shave or dress just don't really need a reflexive pronoun. You can just say, he shaved this morning. We already assume he didn't shave somebody else. Second, and this is a big one, watch out for those common misspellings. Words like himself or theirselves just aren't standard English words. The correct forms are and always will be himself and themselves.
Phew, we've covered the definition, all the different uses, and the common mistakes to avoid. Now let's lock all that knowledge in with a quick summary of the key takeaways you really need to remember.
So, here it is, all in a nutshell. First, always remember that mirror rule. If the subject and the object are the same, you need a reflexive pronoun. Second, you can use them to add emphasis, like the director herself showed up. Third, that special phrase by myself simply means alone. And maybe most importantly, don't fall into that common trap. Don't use myself when the simple object me is what you actually need.
And that's a wrap. A complete guide to the world of reflexive pronouns. So now that you're an expert, the final question is for you. As you go about your day, reading and listening to things, where are you going to spot these words being used out in the wild? Happy hunting!